provide leadership training. We train leaders to use coaching skills, and I've been working on multiple platforms for a number of years now. So delighted to be here and share some insights.
Thanks, Siham. Alex?
Hey, folks, I'm Alex. I have made a career out of working with startups that are evangelizing open source technologies. Yeah, in the last 18 months or so, I've fallen in love with LearnWorlds, and I hope you do too.
Carl?
Great. Hi, I'm Carl Kopp. I'm a professor of instructional design and technology at Commonwealth University. We've recently merged with our sister schools. And I've been teaching the design, development, and delivery of online instruction for since 1997. So it has been a while, but I'm very excited to be at this event and to see the evolution of what's happening in online learning. Very, very exciting.
Thanks, Carl. I think overall, if we add all the experience here, it's a tremendous number. So, Carl, I can start with you. I guess our audience here is mostly interested not to hear from me, but from all you guys. So let's start to unravel a bit what we see as trends for not just for 2025, but obviously for beyond that. So what do you see, Carl, as design practices that in this day and age are still non-negotiable for engagement, for bringing in engagement, which is like a very coveted metric? What design choices that our audience here, if they haven't adopted yet, they should really start looking into with intent?
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic question. And let me start by saying that we need to use an evidence-based approach to design instruction. So we literally have hundreds of years of evidence of what makes good instruction. So doing things like spaced practice, spaced retrieval, doing things like starting out the learner with action-first learning, ask a question, make the learner do something, engage them right away. Many times in training, we see the sort of trend of let's tell the learner what they need to learn, and we'll tell them, and then at the end, they'll know what they need to learn, and that's fantastic. But we need to flip that and make it more practice-based and practice-focused. So if you look at, in the United States, Tom Brady, arguably one of the best American football players in the world, he would go to practice every single day. Why? To get better. In a lot of corporate environments, we run into people, a sales guy goes, I've been selling for 20 years. I don't need any practice. But that's a mistake. So we need to focus on practice. We need to focus on action-based learning elements. We need to focus on getting the learner involved sooner rather than later. A really simple trick you can do is just start with questions, right? So instead of saying, you will learn 5 ways to close a sale, why don't you say, do you know the number one way sales are closed in our organization? And the person might say, maybe I do, maybe. So now they're paying attention. Otherwise, they're saying, hey, I know 6 ways to close sales. This is a waste of my time. So starting with action and have somebody do action, using an evidence-based approach. You teach didactic knowledge through elaboration theory, through matching theory. We teach concepts through examples and non-examples. So there's things out there. So it's not just that, with AI, you can just dump content out there, and that's, somebody can do that on their own. But what really makes a difference is designing the content so that it impacts the learner, so that they retain it, so that they practice it. So spending that time designing the content will make a big difference to your learners. And then the other element is thinking about behaviorally focused learning objectives. So instead of saying, you're going to understand the ways to do this, why don't you say you will be able to identify 3 ways to improve your sales opening? So now you've got 3 very specific, very measurable items. You can go then to the end of the training and you can find out, are they able to identify those elements? Are they able to apply those closing techniques? So I think using an evidence-based approach, non-negotiable. Thinking about action-first learning, having the learner do something right away is non-negotiable. And then defining the behaviors you want out of your learners, non-negotiable.
I love your answer, Carl. And it's like, as you said, some of these principles are known for hundreds of years. In some cases, we think that technology makes this obsolete, and just because we have the next gimmick or some AI, we don't need that. But the human brain is the same. The human experience is the same, and we really this is the core of how the human mind works, and we have to enable it and use the tools that we have at our disposal. So I think you're also giving me a good pass. So if we go over to Alex, you are coming from the corporate world, fast moving tech, and it's very surprising. At least it was to me in the beginning when I saw that their education can be perceived as a real growth lever. So from your perspective, from your vantage points, what shifts are you seeing in how companies are using learning to drive adoption and customer success?
Yeah, and I think that's great, right? Learning can really increase the velocity of prospecting or onboarding, adoption, expansion, right? When it's aligned to relevant strategy, but it's also backed by data and reporting, as Carl is acknowledging, right? This allows you to actually evaluate, keep a flexible strategy, and be responsive to the evolving needs of the business or your user community, right? Learning is being positioned in the customer lifecycle in many ways, and we're seeing it appear in many different parts of the lifecycle. Documentation has getting started, quick starts, tutorials. These are becoming table stakes, showing how front and center learning impacts onboarding experience for the new user, gives them confidence that they're going to be guided properly, right? YouTube, you have quick hits, you have courseware, you have evangelist sessions. They're all over the place. You have guided trials inside of products, right? New products are coming to market with guided experiences. I think a lot of people are used to opening an app and seeing 3 or 4 screens on the app for the first time. You're seeing that in products now too. Not just for the free trial, but for the entire learning experience. There's a collection of tools out there that make in-product walkthroughs possible, which is not a replacement for all the great stuff you do in a learning system. It's another way of meeting the users where they are. Acknowledging the customer lifecycle is something that is fluid, and people are appearing in many different places while on that journey. Carl talked about prescriptiveness versus responsiveness. This is a phrase that I use all the time, right? Getting ahead of the user needs. We can do a lot of reporting, see what people are doing in our products, understand where their gaps are, start to classify them and recommend to them, get in front of them, either with email campaigns, outreach from an account executive, pop-ups in the product, right? Auto-enrolling in courses, whatever it may be. From the OSS side, also, I want to acknowledge that there's a lot of focus on OSS technologies right now. Enterprises are championing OSS technologies, and they're offering hosted versions, right? This is sort of an area that we exist in. And using this education to evangelize technology is really important, because as the technology gets stronger, so does your business, right? And obviously AI, right? I mean, everyone's talking about AI. I built a tool in 23 called Bloom GPT. You can look it up in the GPT store. It helps me write my quizzes. I give it source content, and it asks me what kind of quiz questions I want, and what's the tone, and how many, and at what level of Bloom's taxonomy. And this lets me be more efficient as a developer. We can't negate the fact that these technologies are going to allow us to move faster with focus, and that's going to mean we can have a greater lift on these metrics. So there's a lot of trends, and I think people are waking up to the reality that self-service onboarding, education, expansion makes products sticky, right? And it also brings a sense of delightment and joy to the individual, right? Like, you actually get excited by using it because you know how to use it.
That's great, Alex. And like my personal motto on this, based on experiences and exchanges with people like you, and we've had similar discussions again in the past, is that education can really be the best form of marketing. Like in your case, it's OSS software. In other cases, it can be products. There is a delight and the value just in the learning part itself. But the moment you start feeling empowered, and you have also, you mentioned this proactive approach of training people before they use something, instead of just going after the fact and trying to rectify things, this can really create a flywheel, a positive effect for a business. So it's really great that you're sharing this today. So Siham, if I go over to you, you are a certified coach. You built, I guess, your initial following and your reputation around live coaching and communities, very visible, very prominent in these spaces. Lately, you're shifting towards course first delivery, and so how do you think about that, and why you believe, or you may believe, that other creators should consider following that path? What extra does it bring to your business and approach?
Yeah, interesting, because I think the balance between community first or course first as an approach really depends on your learners. For us, the years of trialing different platforms, some that are strongly community led with the courses sitting on the back end of it or as an extra, didn't really work for us, because we found that our community is a more intimate group of people. They're leaders trying to overcome some fears of trying different techniques, practice, to Carl's point about, evidence-based practice. That means that they actually apply. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. I may have caught a cold from my kids going to university and starting their first weeks. I think it's really important to know where your learners are. Again, to Alex's point, meeting your learners where they are, and if safety and confidentiality is really important as part of the environment that you create for them to learn best, then it's worth considering that and really thinking about, how do you create that? So for us, it's the course is primary, and having access to the community element to dip into as they wish is kind of the best emphasis, really. But knowing where they are is super important. And then the other part of it is, you've got community is happening outside of your platform, outside of your course. The learning that can happen without realizing that you're learning, the exposure to different ideas or concepts and so on, is I think super important. And what Alex was saying, if they have access to that, then that is super important, and that's happening on social media in different physical worlds as well as virtual worlds. So how do you bring them back into so exposing them to your content, to your community, to your learning, to what you're sharing with them? Sorry, the voice is rubbish today. So yeah, that I think are the most important points. And it's a big investment for creators to spend and drive that kind of community. So it's really understanding, meet them where they are. Some people want to be in a space where they belong, and that's fantastic. And they're much easier and more comfortable at sharing stuff, especially with strangers. So, that's great. But really, knowing where they are, and perhaps a smaller, more intimate spaces is more valued by your particular learners.
Thanks, Siham, and I really feel sorry for taxing your voice, but thanks for making the effort and sharing these insights. That's something that we also see from the product side. We see lots of content creators coming from non-course creation, let's say, business models that are productizing their knowledge, and they're trying to create a first initial or multiple different versions, which are easy now to be adapted and created with some help of AI. But also the community element can become a flywheel on top. In some cases, it's just a free community that is open, and it acts also as a place where you can get more leads from, or it can be an added value product that you are selling on top. But as I mentioned before, it's a learning, it's a team sport. Learning, it's a team sport. So it's the things that we see happening within communities, and with the pressure of AI, we see more engagement in these communities. That's probably the beautiful thing. This can be extremely valuable for every business. So let's try now to look into the glass sphere and try to share with our audience a few more stuff about what potentially we might be looking into. Alex, going back to you. You talked about Bloom GPT. I've become a user of Bloom GPT and have started, playing around. How do you see, especially again with your corporate experience, how do you see AI and other innovations changing the role of customer education? Like everybody thinks about speeding up course creation, but is there in some way reshaping of the whole way that learning supports business outcomes? So could you double down a bit on this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that AI is changing the game, right? But I also want to acknowledge that AI is not going to solve every problem, right? From a development perspective, we look at discrete bookended activities or tasks. By that, I mean there's a clear repeatable input, there's a prescribed approach that is not open-ended, and there's a clear and structured output, right? I use the example of Bloom GPT, right? There's a very clear input, right? What's the source content? There's a structure, we follow Bloom's taxonomy, and there's an output, which is given by the user in the beginning and says, here's what my expectation is around what you create, right? Beyond that, we're leveraging automation platforms like Zapier, N8N, to connect our learning system with other tools in our stack. And, like Carl said before about making sure we're watching the data, these automations help us trigger learning interventions based on user behavior or sync progress across systems and create, seamless educational experiences. LearnWorld's additional AI capabilities also allow us to accelerate content development or recommendation if people are coming in the system who aren't, traditional educators like myself, but are interested in exploring how to create content. And, we're seeing adoption internally from other teams. I think there are 4 kind of top line metrics that could be considered by, when you address AI, right? Support ticket deflection, time to onboarding or time to first activity, velocity of usage increase, and use case expansion. These represent the ability for users to self-service learn, become critical thinkers, solve their own problems, expand their usage. We're seeing the rapid adoption of chat agents, and people are increasingly comfortable and quick to ask natural language chat agents technical questions. But they're not just looking for answers, they're looking for guidance. And this is the sweet spot for education, right? Not to serve as a standalone agent somewhere else in your ecosystem, but to exist within the primary agent that's being built for internal users or external users. If you have a chat agent in your product, that's the first place people are going to ask their questions. And you want to keep them there, right? As long as you can. That's going to make the product sticky. When there's a need for conceptual and comprehensive educational, then they'll go back to the LearnWorlds. But if they're looking for quick supportive answers, education still needs to exist there. So this is not a point just for educators. I want to emphasize this to everybody out there designing the solutions, right? Ensuring these agents are taking advantage of teaching opportunities is really critical. It doesn't have to be big, bold explanations. It can take the form of simple reminders of metric definitions in the semantic layer, for example, right? I have the pleasure of working with the team here at Dremio, building our own agent. And our mentality is that this is not just an analytics tool, and it's not just a learning tool. It's both, right? We are building structured experiences to drive conceptual comprehension so that people are able to self-service, right? Our explanation buttons have hyper-contextualized chats that begin with structured responses for the purposes of education. And then, of course, you can always, go further in. So I would encourage anybody listening, if you're an educator or not, keep this in mind because it's going to make your users more successful and it'll make you more successful.
Thanks, Alex. And from what you're saying, I just want to share something that this mode of interacting with a chatbot is becoming increasingly, the premium mode, the first mode. Billions of people are now accustomed to just asking for their questions and responding, getting a chat response in great text back. So if we just sit on the side, the world will not stop. This will continue to be the most used experience, and people will demand more. And also people will become increasingly more willing to just get serviced by a bot because they get in time, in place, learning, answers, guidance, or whatever, instead of waiting for the premium human experience that might happen on the next day. So these are already influencing how people behave, how people search for answers, how people are purchasing their products and everything else. So we cannot just sit on the sides and wait. So getting back then a bit to Siham, Siham, much of your work is about leadership as conversation. So as e-learning evolves with AI, we see immersive media, we see micro content. What do you see from your side as the biggest opportunity or risk for maintaining this evergreen, authentic, and trust building experience that you are bringing in from a coaching perspective?
Yeah, I'll start with the risk. I think the ease with which you can create content means that you do have a risk that you're going to lose the personality or the authenticity or uniqueness of your way of explaining something or your way of teaching something. So I think that's super important. In our space in particular, there's always the risk of corporate jargon added with, same sounding content, actually not being as sticky for people. It sounds too bland, it's too general. So I think those are the risks. So the speed at which you create something, I think it's super important to be mindful of the quality of what we're creating as well. In terms of opportunity, obviously the biggest time gains, and inviting the learner therefore to do more practice, to use that time to actually create those experiences that Carl was talking about. I love what Alex was saying. The AI stuff is, I was a little bit hesitant, as anyone is when you get into it, but I'm super impressed with the quality, and I'd say it perhaps has raised the bar a little bit in terms of consistency and quality when it comes to scoring and feedback. So in addition to the self-service side of things, I think that's super important. So you gain more time, put that into, getting learners to actually practice, build their own body of evidence of whatever the skill is that you're doing. And then, another potential opportunity, and this will depend on what it is that you are providing or creating, is inviting learners to, or involving learners' experiences, bringing that into the bigger picture. So, sharing that with other learners, and that being something that enhances or adds to the experiences that you create for your learners. Obviously, that goes with some caveats of, making sure that we've got their permission to use it in that way, and make sure that it's usefully added, and that it doesn't take away from the quality of or the integrity of the learning or the content that you already have.
Thank you, Siham. And Carl, since you are also coming from academia, there was one thing that we were saying back in the day about e-learning, that there was always a revolution 5 years in the future. We were always waiting for the next best thing to happen, and is it here? So we've seen waves of changes. We had gamification, and then it was micro learning, and now it's AI, probably on the next level. What's the next horizon that you see? Technologies or approaches that could fundamentally reshape how we do learning and how we define learning in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the things that when we took one of the mistakes that was made in e-learning very early on is we took the broadcast model of instruction and we automated it. So we just made sure everybody could get exactly the same information as quickly and as fast as they could. And so one of the things that's happening now with AI is the ability to add personalization. So personalization is key. So I get the instruction that I need, that I'm asking for. AI can serve up what I am looking for. So that's one. I think personalization is definitely coming. We talked about it for a while. Now we're here. And then the next one is kind of a coach in your pocket. So there's a book by Neil Stephenson written in 1995, actually, called The Diamond Age, and it's a story, or a young lady's primer. It's a story of a young girl who finds a book powered by, in that case, nanotechnology, that basically coaches and mentors her through her life. Really kind of, so if you just take out nanotechnology and put in AI, that's basically kind of what's happening. And so I think one of the things that creators and learning and developer people are going to do is create these different coaches for different opportunities for the learners. So that's going to give the idea that the coaches are going to help us do what we need to do. They're going to personalize it. In fact, I gave a presentation last summer where I had an AI co-presenter. Her name was Jane, after Jane Goodall, Taking Care of the Apes. And we actually co-presented at a conference. So this idea of working side by side with AI, I think, is going to definitely start to take off in the future. The other thing that I think is really exciting is smart glasses. For a while, smart glasses kind of like, nobody likes Google Glass. And then all of a sudden, now Meta has Ray-Bans. It's kind of cool. So with augmented reality, I think we're going to be able to project, for example, how you repair a piece of equipment. Well, there's step-by-step instructions literally right in front of your eyes. Or, hey, I got to interview somebody. There's, interview questions literally right in front of your eyes. So that's going to be, I think, an exciting element that's going to happen. And as soon as that gets a little bit closer, the technology gets a little bit smaller, that's going to really take off. They're actually working on, this is really cool, sonar activated elements in your glasses. So instead of having to wear sensors, your glasses will pick up your movements or your gestures, and that'll be really kind of interesting. And then in terms of adult learning principles, I see this really interesting element of storytelling. I think one of the things that as we get to the modern technology, we sometimes lose the fact that for literally thousands of years, humans have transferred knowledge through stories. It's the most effective way to convey information that humans have ever come up with in terms of affective domain, cognitive domain, even psychomotor domain. Think about stories when you were younger. They stay with you almost like forever. Like, oh, I remember when my grandmother told me this, or I remember when my father told me this. So stories are really powerful tools, and we need to leverage those elements of storytelling so that we can do that. One other thing that I'll say is that the research of the difference between an expert and a novice in a subject matter is really interesting. So a novice has learned these heuristics or algorithms, and so that they solve problems by going, okay, well, this is kind of like this, and then step 2 is this, step 3 is this. But expert actually, I'm going to use a word that probably nobody knows anymore, but an expert actually goes through their Rolodex of similar experiences. For those of you who don't know, Rolodex is just a place where you used to have phone numbers and things of people before we had cell phones. But basically, they go through their library of experiences and go, oh, this one is most like this. What did I learn from that? And they apply it. So I think storytelling is really going to be the future of this learning, and personalized storytelling with the coach in your pocket. And so, when I did a presentation, Jane said, hey, Carl, let's tell them a story about this, and then you would tell that story. So I think that interaction is going to be really important. I think the idea of having all the information literally right in front of you, you no longer have to carry a phone, that's going to be really interesting. So those are, I guess, a kind of short-term, long-term, and then a little bit longer-term predictions. But I'm excited about all of that and think that there's a real opportunity to really have learning make an impact on the learners when we put all three of those together.
Thanks, Carl, for sharing this. I really love the Diamond Age reference. In fact, it's one of my own models of using technology with my daughter, with my 11-year-old daughter. Sans the martial arts stuff. So if anybody here is on the science fiction thing, go out and look it up. It was written before iPhones and smart devices. So you can see how ahead of time it was. Very briefly, in just 30 seconds, a question for all of you. If there's one thing you could leave this audience to do right now, to keep up, to prepare, to stay ahead, to be at the edge of what is happening, what would it be? Who would like to start? Siham?
Yeah, happy to go. I think the most important thing is understanding your users, to go and do the user research about what may be blocking them from engaging with your content, your learning, and so on.
Alex, perhaps?
I don't want to be very doom and gloomy, but I think that people need to start acknowledging that AI is coming. It's here. We are entering the age of the power IC, someone who can do the work of 2 to 3 people, not because they work late or they work hard, but they work smart and they work with tools. This is going to change our landscape really quick and for the better. And I think that everyone would benefit from getting hands-on, right? Get your hands dirty, as they say, with these technologies.
Thanks, Alex. And Carl, take from you.
Yeah, so I really think that one of the things that we need to think about is kind of exploding our old concepts of courses and really thinking about how can we engage and entertain the learner. And the example I like to give is the Deadpool and Wolverine movie. And the thing I like to think about that is that was not a traditional movie at all. In fact, there were elements in it, for example, when you first met Johnny Storm, who was the Flame, you thought he was Captain America. And so all of a sudden they're leading you down that, and then you had to know that Chris Evans also played Captain America or you wouldn't have gotten it. And so I think what's happening in the entertainment industry, and they're breaking the Deadpool breaks the fourth wall of the fourth wall. And I think they're using different conventions and breaking the tropes. So the reason why, for example, Shrek, that movie, was so popular is because it broke all these fairy tale tropes. And I think the next range of learning experiences are breaking those tropes. So I would encourage everybody to look at the tropes that are out there in learning and development. Look at the tropes that you're producing, and we're all producing tropes. I'm probably the most guilty person of it all. And then think about how can we break or modify these tropes so that it truly is engaging, different, and helps the learner accomplish their goal. One of my favorite quotes that was never said, apparently, is by Picasso. And this quote is attributed to him. And the quote is, "Learn the rules like a professional so you can break them like an artist." And I think that's what we need to do. We need to understand, what does AI do? What do common learning strategies and tropes do? What does entertainment do? And put these together and start to really think differently about how and where and why we're delivering instruction.
Love that note, and I think we can close with that. That was actually one of the of the audience questions that I would like us to go through. That in an era of ChatGPTs, with the AIs being there available 24/7 to our students, what is the main role of the instructor? And I think, Carl, what you just mentioned, being able to break the tropes and be able to be the kind of the artist and the creator and the person and the brand and the community leader and the guide, effectively, that any teacher is a guide through this experience of learning. This is really what we should be doing, and the tools are there to help us. They're there to support us, not to take away from that. Even more so, they're there to make us more powerful in exercising that guidance role. I really have to thank you for going this lovely discussion and sharing all your insights. I'm sure our audience would like to have more time with you, but also we have to respect your process and the time and Siham's throat that we taxed today. I really love for you to have you here, and thanks for sharing all your learnings. You deserve a break. And also our audience, a couple of minute breaks, and then we are going forward with our next session delivered by George and Panayota about AI. Thanks everyone for being here. Thanks for helping me launch these Worlds of Learning. See you in the future event.
Yeah. Thank you, Panos. And also, Alex, if you're still with us, just if you can share the URL for the Bloom GPT. A lot of people were asking about that. So if you can share that in the chat.
You're on mute, Alex, but yeah,
I would
no
be more
problem.
than happy to. I will send it in the chat. I will, 1 second, let me get the URL.
Yeah, no problem. You can send it.
Uh,
And guys, feel free to like take a break for like a couple of minutes until our next session. Go ahead, go grab your drink, or just move around for a little bit, take a little break, and we'll be back in a few minutes, like 3 minutes or something.
I shared it in the chat. If anybody's still listening,
Yeah, they'll find it when we'll get back. So thank you for that,
please
because
feel
there were
free
tons
to.
of questions on that.
Thanks, Alex. We'll make sure to put it in the notes, and any follow-ups we'll share. Thanks,
I'm happy to
Elisa,
discuss it.
for hosting. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, of course. All right, so slowly resuming towards our next session. So if you guys were running to get your drinks or anything else, so slowly and steadily come back as we are. Let me turn my camera on as well. Sorry, I had it off from earlier. Hello again. All right, so I think we're ready to move on to our next session. So our next session is going to be about how you can combine AI and instructional design for high impact learning. The section is going to be with our CPO, George Valigeorgiou, and co-founder of LearnWorlds. And alongside George is going to be Panayota Christodoulou, an instructional technologies expert at LearnWorlds as well. So hello, both of you. Let me know if you can hear me. Feel free to turn your camera on, your sound on.
Hey, Elisa. Hello, everyone.
Hello, Panayota.
Hi there also. I'm
Hi, George.
Nice to be here. Very excited to present it to so many people that are so passionate about instructional design and AI.
All right, so I think we're ready whenever you guys want. You can start going ahead with the session.
Okay. So I think before we drive you into our framework presentation, I would just like to, offer you a moral compass, like previously also Carl, I think, mentioned it, that we need to be responsible when we are using AI in our course designs. So here is a short acronym for you to remember how to act responsibly while you're course designing with the help of AI. So we have a frame over here. F stands for fairness and equity. Of course, you should take into account that whatever AI generates might has biases included in the content. So check out for them, remove them, be responsible, and take into account your learners' private data. Inform them that they might be interacting in any apps with AI. Be clear about it. Always be mindful to check about the results, how accurate they are, how correct they are. You need to verify constantly. Keep monitoring whatever you use and generate with the help of AI, how it performs actually with your learners. Does it actually perform as expected? And finally, you need to consider that in some cases, some values need to be, in place, and whatever you generate, any content might be aligned with it. Like if you are in an L&D team and your organization has a specific set of day regulations or stuff like that. So that's just to bring this moral compass up front. And then I think we can, George, continue with the presentation of our framework. A small remark that every result that you will see now on from our presentation used the following 3 LLMs: ChatGPT, Model 5, Gemini, and Claude Sonnet. I do see a poll, but I think it might be by accident, something.
It's okay, you can just minimize it.
Okay. So moving on to our framework, George, the floor is yours.
So what we are going to present in this session is a framework of how we could use AI in instructional design, which has been built, and we are still building it for now 3 years. From the very first moment in LearnWalls, we were full all in AI. We brought AI in our platform, LearnWalls platform, and we always had in mind how we can do that in a sophisticated way. What does that mean? I think everyone will agree that the use of AI tools in instructional design is mainly opportunistic. That means that someone might have heard that he can use Bloom taxonomy, and he can produce questions with the Bloom taxonomy. Or someone might have understood that he can create flashcards in Claude immediately. If you go to Claude and say, I want flashcards, you will see also interactive output there. So all of that stuff doesn't create an adequate base for someone to believe that he can combine AI and instructional design in the best possible way so as to develop courses, not any courses, but impactful courses, instructional strong courses, creative courses with the full advantage of AI. So we did some reverse engineering, and we said we need 5 layers of skills that all instructional designers should have in 2025. The first one has to do how we use AI to understand better the domain that we are going to teach. The second layer has to do with how we produce learning activities, from slide to images to sounds, video, and all the learning material that we use in our courses. The third one is that we have to understand how we prompt in the best possible way the AI tools, because that makes a difference. That makes you more efficient. The fourth layer has to do, it relates to how well we understand how we can combine instructional theory and instructional approaches with producing material. And in this layer, we will try to show you how this will make your results more sound. And at the last layer, we think that every instructional designer should know the tools. So this is a big framework. There is a book. I'm not sure whether we are going to share that also in the chat. Probably it's a good idea to share it in the chat. We will focus in this presentation only 2 layers, the most important layers, layer 2 and layer 4. So let's start, Panagiotta, with layer 2. Which are the things that someone can produce with AI?
So keep in mind that what we will present constitutes like a lexicon of learning activities. So we can start with flashcards as the first type of learning activity you can create. Here is an example of a flashcard set created with ChatGPT. We uploaded a file. We had various learners from various countries. We asked what kind of cuisines they might represent and create some respective flashcards with the key characteristics, key ingredients, and so on of its one of the cuisines. You can see here the generated results, the text part, and also the images for each one of the flashcards. You get to see like how realistic they feel, but I think you might enjoy more the next example, which is generated from Gemini. I mean, the detail you will find at least in the images. I think you will agree, George, that it's great. I mean, I even got to get to, you know, to familiarize with Filipino quiz. I was like, what is this dessert over here? I even Googled it and tried to see what was it. It's like, it's called Hello Hello. It was really funny to see and learn even from these generated results over here. And that's, yeah.
May I say something? Because I think you are skipping prompts very fast. I feel that the power of what you're presenting is exactly in the prompts. The fact that you are describing in a very detailed manner the things that you want, and this is something that usually people miss. We are going into AI prompts with just some generic prompts and then huge dialogues, while prompt engineering, it's a very important prerequisite so as to create the results that you are showing there.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And you will see also that we use pretty detailed prompts as we continue with the examples. Another result here is generated from Claude, where you get the actual artifact, you get to test and preview the user experience even. And moving on, we have another kind of educational artifact you can create with AI. Of course, it's images. I assume that all of you have created at least once. And here is another example of a very detailed prompt. We have asked for a high quality, realistic image for a particular type of slide depicting a professional chef with short brown hair, wearing a white chef's coat, doing some julienne technique, and a lot of details. If you're going to read the prompt, you will receive the presentation, so you will have time to go through it. And you will see that each model represented slightly the same thing, but with some differences. Each one has some pros and cons. You can, I guess, it's better nowadays to test a lot of the tools, see which performs better based on your aims and goals in course design. Here is another set of tools that created the same output from the same prompt. And like I wanted here just to draw your attention a bit on a couple of things you can play around with Gemini nowadays. I think you might have heard a bit the fuzz about Nano Banana, their new model. And you might have noticed that previously our chef was in a kitchen, but now we just remove the background easily and put the chef in a boat kitchen, just with a simple prompt. And then if you want to remix a bit the result, I was thinking, I mean, my niece is a fan of Stitch. So I said, okay, what if I could include Stitch in this image? And I uploaded in Gemini this image over here, Stitch, and you can see how it integrated it. It seems a bit realistic, like a very good result, I think. Stitch chopping some carrots, and at the very end I was thinking, okay, I want to change the hair of the chef, so I uploaded another hairstyle, and then the model reacted as instructed and changed the hair. I mean the stuff that you can do now, can be stopped only from our imagination, so go wild with such things. Moving on, another artifact, it's a timeline. Here is an example of a timeline on digital marketing. You can see the text-based result from ChatGPT, but I'm moving on also to Gemini results. You could also see in the middle of the screen an interactive prototype of the same timeline, or even an infographic at the very end, which I guess it's really good. I mean, even the typos are limited now, and the icons are extremely good. But even if you want to top, your game, you can even move this experience to Google AI Studio and create like an interactive flashcard style timeline. I mean, you have the timeline, but you have your learners asking a question at each point of the timeline. So I think what can be more interactive than that, right? Then we have another kind of learning artifact, which is a glossary. I mean, Here in the example, we have created a product management glossary. You see the text-based result, but then again, you can see a prototype built in ChatGPT-5. You can play around with the words, filter them, see, the terms and their definitions. I think it's pretty wild what we can do. Same results, but with another LLM, Claude here. Moving on, we have another learning artifact. Remember that we are building your lexicon of learning activities now. A case study is something that you can use with your learners. For example, here we have a case study on a spinal cord injured patient. We asked for particular things on the prompt. You can see patient demographics, the structure of the program, course exercises, and on the other side, you can see actually exactly the results that we get based on this detailed prompt. The same with Claude over here and Gemini. Another type of learning activity is the fill in the blanks. It's a typical, I think, learning activity. I think, George, you will agree. It's easy to use. We asked here ChatGPT, we uploaded a particular book. We asked to create such an exercise with 8 sentences and the word options that our learners can fill in. The first output, it's only the text generated by ChatGPT, but then also we created like a prototype to test it and see the user experience, how right and wrong answers are flagged, and you can see here the results. Or you can even use AI native tools like LearnWorlds, and we have a fill in the blank activity. You can easily prompt. George explained also our philosophy in how we prompt in our authoring tool and create this fill in the blank activity. Another one is the slides. I think all of us use slides nowadays. You can ask to create 10 slides with 3 key takeaways on brand growth. This is the example over here. You get the results. And as I move on the slides, you will see how tools up-level a bit the interactivity and the results. Here in Gemini, I got the same results. I got a prototype of the presentation, and I was even able to upload like an image and, adapt this presentation to the feel and look of an image that I liked in order, to get this particular layout. I wouldn't be able to do it so fast other ways. Of course, you can use Gamma tool to create directly your entire presentation, or you can even trigger the AI agent inside, for example, ChatGPT. This agent here can do some research for you, and I will just quickly show you how the end result would look like. So after it did some research, the topic that we asked was on microlearning and the comparison with traditional learning. And you can see we got 6 slides with some comparisons, some stats. I think it was really, and it took it like 10 minutes to do also the research and create the actual artifact. I found it really a great starting point for my work. Moving on, we have self-assessment checklist. It's another kind of artifact you can create with AI. You can, in this example, we have already a checklist that we would like to improve on our course in yoga. We did ask that to ChatGPT, to Claude. We get various results. The idea here is to check, among the various LLMs and identify which best fits your purpose. I think it's really crucial nowadays not to trust only one model. Why only one when you can have like so many different things? Oh, and this is like my favorite one, how you can use AI to create a video script. In this example, we have a video script about conflict resolution. We asked ChatGPT to break the script in scenes. You see here, it created a table with the various scenes. We asked for narration and visuals, as you can see in the prompt. That's what we get, but I even tried it in Gemini, and nowadays you can natively in Gemini, apart from generating the script, you can also create 8-second minute videos. So originally our video script was for 5 minutes video. So here I had to slightly adapt the first scene that I got in the results. I have also included the prompt that I created based on this screen so that I have a better result in the actual video. And I think I'm gonna spend these 8 seconds to preview the video.
Ever felt like work life hits some choppy waters? Conflict is normal, but handled well, it builds better teams.
So, I mean, you can connect multiple videos of 8-second duration and create like an intro video for your course pretty easily with the help of AI.
So, Panayota, what we are trying to say right now is that an instructional design needs 3 things. First of all, to recall the right artifact. For example, right now, until now, you have shared with us slides, case studies, fill in the blank, video scripts, images, and you are going to show a lot more. The second thing is that he has to direct the AI. So you didn't present even one prompt that was saying, create me a video about that. Yeah. All of your prompts were very well structured, and that's the difference there, and that's where experience comes, because you have to direct AI about what to do. And the third thing that you have to do is to know the AI tools, try the output of the same thing in these different tools, and select the one that fits your needs better.
Yeah. That's really crucial. I mean, when I was playing around with Veo 3 and the video creation, I realized that, okay, if I had the original video script, I'm not going to produce the video that it's worth my time. So you need to play around to modify and be really clear on what you're asking from the AI to generate. So here we have other tools for video script creation. Another one is Synthesia. I guess you have been heard a bit about AI avatars and presentations. So you can create the actual presentation. I mean, the scenario is the same here, conflict resolution. And just quickly play a bit how it
clashes or competition
would look like.
Recognizing these signs early can prevent escalation and save resources.
Okay, so here you can see the AI avatar, playing out the short presentation. Then we have audio script. Another example, you might be creating podcasts and you want a fast way to create an audio script. I just will play an example of how we worked with 11 Labs to create a podcast about 3D Creatives portfolio.
Hey there, fellow 3D creatives. Welcome to today's episode where we dive into one of the most important.
So, I mean, the voice, very realistic and enthusiastic. The tone, I think it was a great example. I'm rushing a bit because the time is limited. So another educational artifact you can create is learning songs. So I would say, why not be afraid of, injecting some fun and humor in your courses? You can use tools to create songs like AI Music Factory or Suno over here, and get, your learners' attention immediately from the beginning of the course. You can even create some sounds if you, for example, want to smoothly introduce the topic of your course. A lot of examples. I think you can play around a bit in your own time when you will receive the materials. Another example is the stories. Here, for example, we asked for growing plants and vegetables in pots and containers story. So we have a scene with Lily, which is one of the characters, and the problem is that she plants vegetables and plants that don't grow well enough. And I want to bring your attention to Gemini again and Storybook. And I mean, you can create an entire storybook with illustrations and even an audio voice for this book directly with a simple and detailed prompt. Training scenarios is another interactive educational artifact that you can use. In this case, we have a fire safety scenario in place, 3 scenes. We tested it out. For each one of the scenes, our learners should make, a decision. They should decide between A or B. Here you see the first scene is about smell of smoke near a filling room. They have to decide what they have to do. We built this also as a prototype with ChatGPT, or you can test it out even with Claude or with other tools like Lovable, for example, add images. add effects on top of it, and do a lot of cool stuff.
I
George?
think that, Panayota, we don't have so much time, so I think what you're trying to say that there are a lot of artifacts out there. We have prompts, we have a more extended presentation with several more things there. I'm trying I'm begging the support team to share with you the ebook. I'm not sure if they've done that. So please, you can ask some pressure also to them so as to share the ebook. So let's go to the last part of this.
I just shared it in the chat. I don't know if we shared it earlier, but I shared it right now as well.
That's great.
Really,
So you can read
thanks.
everything, no anxiety about what we are presenting, and you will find a lot more things in that presentation. Now, let's go to the last part for the last minutes, where we have to talk about how to build exceptional instructional plans. And that is being split in 3 different things that we have to do. The first thing is that we have to understand better our learners. And people usually forget that we can ask questions in ChatGPT or other AI tools together with signals that we might feed to these AI tools so as to analyze our learners. So for example, if we go to the next slide, you will see that in this case, we are asking ChatGPT to create 4 personas for UI UX designers. That could also be directed by giving a source. Please create personas for the people that might have the intent to visit that page. So we can build personas that can guide our instructional design. Let's go on. We can also ask about background experiences. So let's say that we are asked to build a time management course for CEOs. How are we going to do that? We have to learn about these guys, how they manage their time. There's so many info out there. AI can compile all of that stuff and bring that to you in a very consumable way. So you can understand it, we can read it, and very fast be acclimatized with the people that you are addressing. Let's go on. And a very important building block of instructional design is the misconceptions, because always we are trying to break the misconceptions. But usually, because this is theory left in the books, we forget about the misconceptions. So let's say that we are talking about phishing attacks, or we are talking about time management. Which are the misconceptions there so as to build on top of that? A very easy prompt to ask and get some invaluable information for your instructional design. Let's go on. Now we are going to the second skill that you have to know how to combine theory with outputs. Let's see examples. You all probably know, let's go to the previous slide, Panayota. We all probably know all these models, ADDIE model, SAM, action mapping, problem-based learning, BLUE, SMART goals, and so on. What you might not have tested is how AI produces results if you guide it to use this kind of plans, instructional plans. So let's go to the next example. If you see, here we are asking to create a syllabus for our course on fashion technology by using the ADDIE model. And you will see that the results are adjusted to the theory. In the next example, we are asking to use Gagné's 9 event of instruction, and you see that Claude is doing a great job of decomposing the theory of Gagné and applying it to the specific domain. Let's go to the next one. Now we are asking to use Blue's taxonomy for learning objectives or for creating questions. So you can create a prompt and say, I want only questions in the level of synthesis of the Blue taxonomy for cooking fishes. Let's go to the next one. SMART goals, the same thing. Let's go faster, please. And let's go to the third. So the third thing, which is, for me, the most important ones, we always forget that the biggest problem with instructional design is how bored students are with our courses, how difficult it is to engage people. And how can we engage people with our material? By providing out-of-the-box examples, by providing out-of-the-box approaches. And we not utilize well enough AI tools so as to bring this creative approach to our design. Here we are showing, and we don't have time, so I will just show a couple of examples. You will see that you have many tools so as to inject creativity into your learning outputs. For example, here I'm asking to create an analogy from cooking to explain the concept of market segmentation. Or in the next one, I'm asking to impersonate a cowboy from Old Western so as to explain market segmentation. Or in the next one, I'm asking to use lateral thinking for market segmentation. So what we are trying to see, and we don't have the time to go through all the slides, is, and we have the Demonos, 6 thinking hats, we do have the Socratic dialogue, several tools that you have to use so as to skyrocket the performance of your instructional designs and the acceptance from the students, the happiness. So many tools here, not have enough time. Elisa, I'm sure you are ready to intervene. Thank you very much for your time. We don't have, I think, time for questions. Am I right, Elisa?
That's true. Unfortunately, no.
So very fast, hopefully you do have the link to the ebook where we describe all of that with great details. So thanks again for inviting us in the whole event, Elisa.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you both a lot for the session. So guys, I reshared that ebook that George mentioned once again. And unfortunately, we do not have enough time to take a little break. And I feel like we are ready to go straight into our next session. So let me share my screen as well. So hopefully you can see that. All right, so on to an exciting next session right here with Dr. Destiny Kopp. So we'll see a session about using AI to simplify course creation and scale delivery. And more specifically, if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Destiny, you have a four-step framework that you typically use. So tell us more about you and your framework as well.
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I've been watching the chat here for a few minutes, and I'm super excited to dive into all of this with you. And my presentation is a little bit different in terms of I'm really going to be going behind the scenes in terms of how I am using AI as kind of like a co-support team with me in my programs, in my businesses, and also what I'm doing as a university MBA professor, because you can go to the next slide here.
Yeah.
I'll just keep it moving. So just a little bit more about me. I am a college marketing professor. I have been teaching since 2005 at the university level, so way back in the dark ages. And I have a couple of online businesses where I help online like course creators, membership owners, coaches implement digital products into their business and also AI and use it as kind of a co-learning opportunity. You can reach me on most social media platforms at Destiny Kopp, and I have my Creators MBA newsletter, which you can check out. Go to the next slide. Thank you. The challenge that a lot of us have, and you can let me know in the chat here if you can relate to this. Like I said, I've been teaching online for so many years, and I have felt this pain for so long. But the good news is AI is helping us overcome a lot of these challenges, and that's low course completion rates, right? We have students that are coming into our programs and they're excited at first, but then they disappear. And then you might have like endless student questions all about the same topic. We can help use AI to address that. And then you just have people that for whatever reason, they just drop off or they're unengaged, or maybe they weren't even engaged even in the very beginning. So some of the things I'm going to walk you through today will help solve all of these challenges. Next. You can go to the next slide. So one thing that I want you to start thinking about as we go through this content is think of AI as your teaching pilot. We know, all of us know here, that AI can help us create the content. We know that it can help us put together the lesson outlines. It can help us put together the content for our our presentations and our workshops or whatever we're going to be teaching. That's not what I'm covering here. What I'm going to be covering here is how you can use AI to help your students get faster results and help them get that promised transformation that you want to help them with. Next slide. As you are kind of thinking about this and figuring out where you can put and use AI as your kind of co-pilot, your teaching co-pilot, I want you to start thinking about your student journey. All the way from the beginning where they're just kind of getting to know about you. Maybe they're signing up for your program, and even from that start of that process. So start looking at what kind of repeating questions are you getting? Where are they asking for help in your program? Where are they disappearing? If they're disappearing after a certain lesson or a module, that would be a huge clue that you might want to go in and add something related to AI in there. But most importantly, I want you to think about how you would respond back to that student if you were there sitting right next to them. And that's going to be one of the keys here. You can go to the next slide. I have a 4-part AI student success system that I have developed, and I put together this framework because I started kind of, mapping out that that student journey and figuring out, okay, what framework can I look at and how can I kind of block this out into different steps to really dig in and figure out where I could help the students. The first one is going to be in the onboarding process. So I'm going to walk you through some things I have done there in my programs. And then we're going to look at support, right? All the kind of questions that come up during the programs. And then kind of looking into where students dropping off and where you can add those check-ins. And then lastly, the SMART recommendations. And I'll cover what I mean by that there. And you can go to the next slide. So let's talk about onboarding. So when somebody is coming into your program, one of the things that you will want to do is look at how you can utilize AI to get them to the right places in your program. And I'll give you an example here. One of my programs in one of my brands, my personal brand, I have a program called the Newsletter Profit Club. And it's basically for people who want to monetize and really build up their newsletters for their business. The challenge that I personally had here is I had students coming into this program that were at all kinds of different levels. I have people coming in with 80,000 people on our email list. I have people who are coming in, they're just starting out. They may only have like 500 people on their email list, and they have different challenges. So I wanted to make sure that I was guiding them to the best resources in the program based on what their specific needs were. You can go to the next slide and I'll show you something that I have done here. So what I did was put together an onboarding AI bot example. I used a tool called LouiseBot, and I kind of mapped this out. So once they come into the program, this bot basically, pops up and says, hello and welcome to the Newsletter Profit Club. So happy you're here. I want to help you get started and answer a few questions. Now, one of the first things that I want people to do as they come into the program is set up what I call their mini magazine newsletter. It's something that I teach. It came out of a research study that I did. So they answer the question, yes or no, and depending on what the answer is, it points them to specific resources. So if they say no, it goes, let me point you to that training and, get them started on that. So I can give them a very, very quick win as they come right into the program. So it's really just guiding them exactly, here's where you need to go. This is the first step. There's no confusion. They know exactly what they need to be doing. Another thing I want them to do is to sign up for our private podcast feed. So there's tons of resources in there. The members can ask questions at any time. And I want to make sure that they're subscribed because that's really a key part of the program. You can go to the next slide. The other thing, and this is for another program that I have called the Creators MBA Lab, is when people come into this program, one of the things that they get is a personalized growth plan for their business. So what happens here, and this is an AI agent that I set up here, they come into the program, they get an email, it asks them to fill out a form. In this particular situation, I have them fill out a Google form. They fill it out. It goes into an AI agent that I have set up. The Google Sheet's the first thing that gets hit there. Then it's tied in to OpenAI, kind of in my back-end door to my OpenAI. I have a custom GPT or direction set up there that basically takes the information that they submitted from that Google form. It synthesizes it. It puts it in a growth plan. Then it sends it to me. And I think that's a very important point here. It doesn't send it directly to the student or to the client. It sends it to me. And what I do, and this is a Zap that I've set up, what I do, I take that information. I might go in, do a little bit more research, might go to their website, might go to their social media accounts, do it, just basically analyze it. Look at the information. I might make some tweaks. I might do a video, and then I send it back to the client. But it definitely streamlines that onboarding. But I think the key here is they still have the expert, which is me, looking at their information and giving them feedback. You can go to the next slide. The next thing is support. Now, support is a big deal, and there's definitely a few ways that you can handle this. But one of the things that I have done, which has been a huge time saver for me, is to set up an AI voice clone. So basically, this is different from a custom GPT, and I want to make sure that this is very clear to everybody. In my programs, in like lessons or maybe a workshop that I do, almost every single time, I'm going to give them a custom GPT to help the students get faster results. That's pretty much a given. I do that almost every time. What I'm referring to here is something that's different. This is more of an AI clone of me. So what I did here specifically for the one that I'm going to show you in just a second is for the Newsletter Profit Club. I took all of the data from a research study. I did a 6-month research study on newsletters. I took all of that data, I put this in the clone. I took all of the data from all the workshops that we have done in this particular program, basically anything that I had related to newsletter, any knowledge base, and I built a knowledge base. So this is a knowledge base. This is not a custom GPT. This is a knowledge base of kind of me and my knowledge and everything related to newsletter. Go to the next slide. I'm going to show you basically what this looks like. So in my program, people can basically, interact with this voice clone of me. And I actually had one of my students, she contacted me. She sends me a lot of questions, through the private podcast. So I answer her questions a lot, but she had a question. It was kind of late at night. She needed an answer. She was working on something related to her newsletter. She goes, Destiny, I just went in and just tried out your clone because I'm like, I just want to see what it says to me. And she goes, it really felt like you were sitting next to me answering me. She goes, it sounded like you, it answered like you, and I got my answer right away. She goes, it was absolutely brilliant. So consider doing something like this that students can get quick answers when you might not be available. You can go to the next slide here. The next thing I want you to think on is related to check-ins. And these are really kind of personalized nudges. And I'm going to give you some examples here. So some of the challenges that I had in my programs is that students were like, Destiny, I need more accountability. I need somebody that's basically going to, kick me and say, you know what, you need to be doing this. So a couple of things that I have set up here is some mobile text alerts, and they can sign up for them. They don't have to sign up for them, but if they want that extra accountability, they want somebody saying, have you done this? This is something that you can set up. And I think I have a picture of it on the next slide. I hope I do. and I can kind of walk you through. But basically what happens is they sign up, they get this text, and let's say it's for the Newsletter Profit Club. They get this text on Wednesday, and basically it says something, have you written your newsletter today or this week? And they can, basically respond back, yes or no. If they need help in that particular setup that I have in that mobile text alert, they can click on a custom GPT that helps them get their newsletter written in 15 minutes or less. I have another one set up for my Creators MBA Lab. Very similar. They can set it up. They can do their basically, what are your goals for the week? What do you need help with? If they need help, I have a custom GPT to help them there. Moving on to smart recommendations. This is part 4. And really what I would say here is think about in your programs, where are your students getting stuck? For me, an example might be in one of my programs, people always have trouble with pricing. They're like, Destiny, I don't know what to price my program at, or my course or my membership or whatever. So I have a custom GPT tool that is specifically written and designed to help them for pricing their offers. Now, this is different from the AI clone that we talked about a little bit more, but this is something that is very, very specific on that. So think about where your students are getting stuck in your programs and where you can just give them that little bit extra help to get those results. You can go to the next slide here. Now, one thing I would say, we've talked about this a little bit in all of my programs in the past. And like I said, I've been doing this since 2005. So I have tons of workbooks and everything here and throughout all of my programs. Really, we know that most students out there aren't filling out your workbooks. They're not going in, they're not downloading a Google Docs, they're not downloading a PDF and filling it out. Generally, that's just not happened. That's why those kind of went to that digital graveyard, if you would. But custom GPTs or anything like that to help students get results, I would say that those are the new workbooks. And quite frankly, they're kind of the baseline. They're the standard right now. You can go to the next slide. We've talked about this just a little bit. We know that AI can help us create the lessons. It can draft the outlines. It can create the lesson content. It can help you with the speaker notes. One of the things I was doing this week in one of the MBA courses that I'm teaching is I have basically a test bank from the publisher. I've taught this course several times. I went to a ChatGPT, I went to AI, and I said, you know what, students are really struggling with these questions. Like they're always getting them wrong. Something's wrong. Can you help me clarify? And, ChatGPT went through and it said, yes, here's why your students are getting, confused on that. So I took that information, updated the quizzes. It was so easy. We have to do there, but think about this. I do think the real magic is when you are supporting your students, like you were sitting next to them, helping them get that promised transformation. That is where the real magic is. You can go to the next slide here. In terms of next steps, here's what I would encourage you to do. Look at your student journey, map out where students are getting stuck, and just pick one place. That's all you have to do this week. Just pick one place. For most of you, that might be in that onboarding part of the process that we talked about today, because we really want to make sure that students are getting off on the right foot there. But just build one simple agent, one onboarding, one kind of onboarding BART, or however you want to set it up. And then also add a check-in. So if you have a place in your program where students are dropping off or where they're really struggling, like for me, it was that pricing. They always got stuck there. They didn't know how to move forward. So once I, put together that custom GPT, that definitely helped there. That's all you have to do. You can make some really, really powerful student transformation results just by doing a couple of these things. Go to the next slide. I do have a custom GPT to help you. Sage will go through. If you answer some questions, she will help you identify exactly where AI can help and support you in your program. So definitely check her out. You can go to destinycop.com @Alexa.com/world and check her out. And I hope I have enough time here for questions because I am ready to answer them.
Yes, you do. And I think that we are right on time. And also step 3, I feel like it resonated with the audience as well. A lot of people like, the accountability thing, they definitely need it. So I feel like step 3 was the interesting one. All right, so we do have a couple questions. So let me actually check it and ask you, Destiny, from the audience. So here's the first one for you. Can you speak about AI and helping students feel a sense of community, relationship building with others? Sometimes bots for onboarding can feel disconnected. So are there any suggestions around that?
I think that's a really good question. And I would say that from my perspective, one of the changes that I have really made probably in the past year and a half with my programs was to inflict more of me and that human element in there, because with the advent of AI and everything, I do feel like that some of that's getting lost. And it was very clear to me based on the feedback that I was getting from my audience and my customers and my students that they wanted more of me, but there's only one of me, right? So I can only do so much. So I was like, okay, what can I do to help them, but I'll also keep, part of me in my programs. And that's one of the reasons why in my programs, I do the live workshops. So that's just how I've designed them, because people want me, they want to see my face. They want to be able to answer, me to answer their questions directly. I also set up the private podcast so people can submit questions that I answer. Now, still, you can get AI to kind of help you speed a lot of that up, but it's still, my brain that is interacting with them.
I see. Okay, I think another popular question was for you to repeat again which tool you were using for the onboarding bot. They kept asking about that.
Yeah. So the tool that I specifically used there was LouiseBot. I will say that there's so many AI tools on the market.
Yeah.
There's so many. I mean, so I think in the last presentation they mentioned 11 Labs. They have great voice clones, and I'm a huge proponent of them. There's so many of them out there, but that's the tool that I specifically used for that application.
Okay, so basically people just do your research, see what works for you, but there's quite a few tools for that as well. Okay, I think we have some more time for maybe another one. So let me see. Okay, they asked again about the clone. Let's go for another one. How do you publish GPT to customers privately for paid learners, like hosting on a LearnWorld's course page, for instance?
Yeah, so I've had lots of discussions on this. There are programs out there where you can put your custom GPTs behind paid kind of paywalls, if you would. I have made the decision that for me personally, I haven't, kind of gone down that path mostly because I have so many of them. I have like 50 plus of them. But I think for a lot of companies out there, I would look for a tool where you can put your custom GPT behind a paywall. Would be my recommendation for most people out there, most businesses.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, another one is, so someone's saying, well, support is crucial, but how many nudges is enough to leave them alone? How much is too much, essentially?
Yeah, so, I leave that up to my students, right? They can sign up for those nudges, kind of those mobile text alerts, or they can not sign up for them. So it's really kind of individually in terms of what they want to do. I do think that because I've been doing this for so many years, there's going to be people out there, no matter how much you nudge them, they might not do the work. I mean, we've all had people like that for sure. But there's also people out there, and I think that this is a large kind of group of the segment of the population that if you just gave them a little bit of a nudge, they'll be like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. I need to go back and do that. Thank you for reminding me. I'll get it done. And then you have like those, A kind of learners that you don't need to ever like help them or do anything. But most people are going to kind of fall into that middle, that they're going to need some type of nudge to get things done.
Mm-hmm. And I guess this is where that sense of accountability comes, because they're like, oh, I guess I'm not alone in this. Someone is tracking whether I'm doing things or not.
Well, they just want to know that you care, that you're not just there to take their money, like you care that they are actually getting results.
Yeah. All right. I don't see any other questions because the support team was also answering live. So I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to answer, something that you get typically. Otherwise, I think that we're good to wrap up. Okay, well, someone is saying, I guess that is a little bit more generic. So Danny is saying how much AI is too much AI? And that could be, a greater question in general, I guess.
Yeah, how much AI is too much AI? I guess, I don't really know how to answer this. I know that in my programs, I have inflicted more of me than even I had in the past. So in the past, I had these self-study type courses where people would just kind of go through them. I switched about a year and a half, 2 years ago to these more live workshop type memberships, just because that people were telling me, Destiny, your self-study courses are great, but I need more of you. Like I need to be able to, ask you questions. They actually want to see my face, right? I'm doing a live workshop tomorrow for, people in a membership that I have, and they love that interaction. They want to ask me questions live. So I do have containers around that. So I did make that change.
And I mean, like you mentioned, there's only so many things that you can do. So if it's from, choosing to not be there or to be there in the form of AI, I guess they would definitely want Destiny, even in the form of AI, to help them with the questions that they have. So definitely worth it doing that. All right. I think we're good to wrap up then. So thanks a lot, Destiny. I think your session was very, very interesting for our audience here. So thank you a lot for sharing your first steps of how you do it with AI.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. All right, people. So I think we are good to go on a break until we move on to our next session. So we'll take a 5-minute break. I will share some poll questions. You can answer those whenever you find them. So go take your break again, refill your drinks if you want to move on a little bit, and we'll be back in 5 minutes. All right, so our break will end in approximately 1 minute. So this is your cue to start coming back. If you're away from your computer, your phone. Also, just a little disclaimer, these polls are just here to help us, essentially get to know you guys a little bit better and what your needs are in terms of the session. So feel free to answer these if you see these on your screen. All right, so I think we're good to start. So hopefully everyone is back and we are ready to move on to the next session. So I'm very happy to introduce Kim Merritt. So Kim is the president and founder of the URL Doctor. I'm going to have to say that I love the name Kim. And Kim is going to talk to us about, showing the money and proving the training ROI, proving training ROI to clients and CFOs as well. Let's see how tough that can be. So Kim, let us know if you can see us, if you can hear us.
I can, absolutely.
Hello, Kim's happy to have you with us here.
Thank you so much. Let me share my screen.
Yeah, of course.
Awesome. Good afternoon, everybody, evening, morning, based on where you're calling in from. Thank you so much for taking time to come to my presentation today. I'm really excited to share this information. So did you know that the global corporate training market is valued at over $360 billion according to research and markets, but 75% of training budgets lack ROI measurement. CFOs demand proof, clients question value, and internal teams need justification. So as a B2B training provider, a course author who wants to sell their courses to corporate, or a manager tasked with training a team, you're uniquely positioned to be the ROI heroes in your clients' or your employer's journey. So our learning objectives. By the end of today's session, you'll have a practical framework for measure training ROI, to present compelling ROI stories, and to transform from that training vendor or employee to a strategic partner that they can't live without. So I've got a lot of information to cover today. I'm going to move through this presentation pretty quickly. It is being recorded and you will get a copy of the slide deck. So our agenda for today, number 1, the ROI reality check. Number 2, 4 pillars of measurable ROI. 3, we're going to go over presentation strategies. And then 4, an implementation roadmap, and we'll follow up at the end with a Q&A session. So when was the last time a CFO threw a party because your course had a 95% completion rate? Right, never. So let's talk about the vanity metrics trap. So what learning and development traditionally measures are completion rates, satisfaction scores, knowledge retention, hours of training delivered, and number of employees trained. But the harsh reality is these metrics don't have a correlation with business performance. They answer, did people show up, but not did magic happen. So executive leadership a lot of times sees these as the business equivalent of participation trophies. I've seen training programs with 98% completion rates and satisfaction scores through the roof, but they had zero impact on the bottom line. L&D talks about learning objectives achieved, engagement metrics through the roof, knowledge transfer was successful. But what executives lose sleep over is revenue growth that actually shows up on their spreadsheets, market share, customer satisfaction and retention, operational efficiencies and cost reduction, risk mitigation and compliance, and a competitive advantage. So here at the URL Doctor, we've learned to speak fluent executive and CFO. When Peter Gallagher, the head of learning and development for Denny's, America's Diner, told us that his customer service scores in the restaurants jumped 30 points from our training course, and they went from middle of the pack in customer service to industry leaders, he wasn't celebrating how many people completed Module 2. He was celebrating cold, hard, beautiful business impact, and you can bet it had a positive impact on the bottom line of individual restaurants and the corporation as a whole. And as a side note, this wasn't even a course with multiple modules that we designed for him. It was a 10-minute micro course optimized for mobile devices. The secret sauce nobody tells you, that gain isn't just revenue, it's every dollar of value that your training creates, including the money that your clients or business don't lose. The costs aren't just your invoice, it's opportunity costs too. And how long does it take for the benefits to show up? Remember that some training benefits appear immediately, but some could take months. So be realistic in your expectations and discuss that up front. So let's discuss 3 different ROI perspectives. This is knowing your audience and who the decision maker is that's important. So for decision makers looking for financial ROI, they're interested in actual money savings, revenue increases, cost avoidance, what disasters didn't happen, and productivity improvements that translated to cost savings. For decision makers in operations, they want to see efficiency gains, process improvements, quality improvements, error reduction, time savings, and resource optimization. For executives and decision makers focusing on strategic ROI, they want to see competition advantages, market positioning gains, employee retention, and improvements in brand reputation and customer loyalty. You need to get your stakeholders and your decision makers to cross over from the old school thinking of training to the new school training pays for itself movement. So old school thinks training is an expense to minimize, focus on cost per participant, justify spending with compliance requirements, and measure success by budget adherence. New school thinks training is an investment with expected returns. You measure success by business impact. You drive spending with business opportunity, and you focus on the value per dollar invested. When clients work with you, they're not buying training, they're investing in measurable business performance improvements. So our job is to help them prove that the training investment was worth it. So now that we understand why traditional metrics don't work and what business leaders actually want to see, let's dive into the specific framework that will help you measure and prove real ROI. So pillar number 1, these are your pre-training metrics. What are the leading indicators that will help you measure real ROI? So we start with where are we now? We establish the baseline, sales performance, customer satisfaction, productivity measures, and error rates. And don't just grab any old metrics. Pick the ones that the CEO and the CFO either smile or lose sleep over. It doesn't matter. If it doesn't matter to the person who's signing the checks, it doesn't matter to your ROI story. Then analyze if a skills gap exists. Perform a capability audit. What can people actually do today versus what should they be able to do? Assign a dollar cost to less than great performance and be honest about where they currently stack up against the competition. Another important consideration is what's the price of not training? What's the cost of doing nothing? Is it lost sales opportunities? Is it customer churn from poor service? Is it efficiency losses? All of these benchmarks and baselines frame the case for training. You want to build a narrative around the problems and the cost of not fixing those problems. You want to identify 2 to 3 key business metrics that training will impact. You want to establish baseline metrics 90 days before you ever start training. And you want to document current costs of poor performance. When you present the meaningful problems and build the narrative around the cost of not fixing things, suddenly your $25,000 or $50,000 or $100,000 training looks like a real bargain. Most LMS systems, LearnRoles included, have a ton of data in them, but a lot of times it's not being used effectively. You want to use your LMS data strategically. So pillar 2 is what happens during the training. You want to focus on progression indicators that predict business outcome. So you want to look at engagement quality metrics, time on task versus optimal learning time, completion quality, peer interaction levels, and return engagement. We have skill demo within the training. You can look at practical application scores, simulation performance, and progressive skill building. And don't forget about confidence indicators, self-assessment improvements, manager observations, and peer feedback. Confidence is the bridge between learning and performance. Someone can know how to do something, but if they don't feel confident doing it, your ROI just went out the window. So pillar 3. Now training's done, people feel good, but did the needle move on any metrics that actually matter? So direct performance measurements. Did sales increase? Are there more deals, bigger deals, faster deals? How about productivity gains? You have the same people. Do you have more output and better quality now? Quality improvements. Do you have fewer oops moments with higher customer satisfaction? And how about speed to competency? How fast did newbies become productive? And as a real world example, remember Peter from Denny's. His team didn't just complete our 10-minute customer service micro course. Their customer service black box scores jumped 30 points, and they went from industry average to industry leaders in customer service. That's what we call a training success story. So then we also want to look at behavioral change tracking. This is the Are They Different Now assessment. So what are supervisors actually seeing? How about peer and customer observations? And what do the employees notice about themselves? Are they more confident in what they're doing? And finally, the speed test, time to competency. This is the million-dollar question. How quickly do people go from training completed to actually useful? So the baseline, what were the pre-training competency timelines, post-training, the accelerated path to productivity, and the ROI calculation, the value of shortened learning curve. And pillar 4, this is where business game changers live. This is what your clients want to see. What were the business outcomes? What is the long-term impact of training? So revenue attribution. Was there a direct correlation between training, performance, and revenue? How about market share improvements? Are we winning more business? And customer lifetime value increases. Are customers staying longer and spending more? Cost savings. Were there fewer mistakes and fewer fix-it costs? How about efficiency improvements? Same results, less time and resources? Turnover reduction. Did we have lower recruitment and onboarding costs? And how about risk mitigation? Did we avoid compliance issues, accidents, and lawsuits? And finally, competitive advantage. Did we see market position improvements? Did industry rankings improve? Did we win awards? Was there recognition? How about customer retention rates? Did people choose to stay with us? How about employee engagement? Are people, do they actually want to be here? Are they enjoying their jobs? And innovation capacity. Do we have better skills that equal better ideas? At the URL Doctor, we don't just create training that people complete, we create training that transforms businesses. And that's what you want to do with your online courses. You want clients to not just get certificates of completion, you want them to get a competitive advantage. So now that you know what to measure, let's talk about how to present these numbers in a way that makes stakeholders say, yes, please, when can we do more training? So how are you going to sell the idea of training to your clients or boss? Executives and CFOs are just like everybody else in today's society. They are busy, busy people. Your ROI presentation needs to hit hard and fast. So to sell the idea of training, you need to tell a story, a visual story, an ROI story, and it needs to be compelling. Talk about before and after comparisons. Show the transformation, not just the numbers. Discuss trend analysis. So here's where we are, here's the trajectory, here's where we're going. Show benchmarks that you're not just improving, but you're really kicking butt compared to the competition and industry standards. If you're using graphics or charts in your ROI presentations, remember that if it takes longer than 30 seconds to understand your chart, it's not a chart, it's a puzzle, and executives don't have time for puzzles. Instead of knowledge retention improved 23%, say employees now solve problems 23% faster, reducing customer wait times. Instead of course completion rate was 94%, say 94% of your team is now equipped to drive performance improvements we're tracking. And here's where knowing your audience is extremely important. You need to use specific messaging that talks directly to the stakeholders. So for CFOs, you want to lead with ROI percentages, cost savings, and risk mitigation. For operations, focus on efficiency gains, quality improvement, and process optimization. For HR leaders, emphasize employee satisfaction, retention, and capability building. So there are different ROI stories that can be told. So let's go over 3 of them. One example is the narrative arc. So there's a challenge, the villain. You develop a solution. You get to be the hero. You tell the results to expect, the victory, and you close with future impact, the sequel. Another example is the quantitative plus qualitative story. The numbers tell the story, but testimonials make it memorable. Remember Peter Gallagher in his comment that we went from middle of the pack to leading the industry because of this training. Our customers notice the difference. That's the story every decision maker wants to hear. And the third example of a compelling ROI story that you can tell is the risk mitigation story. What violations, accidents, and errors were avoided? What talent was retained? Training doesn't have to just be about improvement. It can also be insurance against business disasters. So for course authors who are selling training to clients, you're giving a client-facing ROI presentation. You're trying to position yourself as your client's partner. So your language is super important. You want to use language like our joint investment in performance improvement, the business outcomes we achieve together, your strategic advantage through capability development. And you want to use metrics that are customized to that particular client. Align ROI measurements with their strategic objectives, use their language and priorities, and reference their industry benchmark and challenges. Remember to position your ongoing value and build a long-term relationship. Show, here's how your investment is continuing to pay off. Show them new benefits that you've identified since your last review, and show them opportunities to amplify their ROI even further. So here's a great template structure that works for these types of ROI presentations. So start with your executive summary, your short ROI elevator pitch of 30 seconds or less, then baseline numbers to improve. So here's where we are today, the where we are part of the story. Then go into methodology and recommendations, how we're going to maximize ROI and recommendations for the training you're going to develop. Expected results, here's what we expect to change and why that matters to the business. And then future projections. Here's what this training investment will keep delivering. And always end with a question that positions you as their strategic partner. Based on these results, where should we focus next to maximize your competitive advantage? So now let's turn your training ROI strategy into your competitive advantage, whether you're selling courses to a client or selling training benefits to upper management. Here's a 30, 60, 90-day action plan. So in the first 30 days, you're going to audit current measurement practices, identify 3 key business metrics for each training program, and establish baseline measurement protocols. In the next 30 days, you're going to implement tracking systems and analytics. You're going to begin data collection on active programs, and you're going to create ROI reporting templates. And then in the final 30 days, compile first ROI reports present findings to internal stakeholders, and refine measurement and reporting processes. And remember that LearnWorlds is your all-in-one analytics tool. It does so much more than just serving your training courses to learners. It sends surveys. It has business intelligence dashboards. It can report the ROI that you need to prove impact. And with workflows and automations, it will do many of those tasks for you. I recommend LearnWorlds to the majority of our course authors and corporate clients because it's such a feature-rich choice, all while being very cost-effective. So our key takeaways today. Number one, ROI measurement is your secret weapon. It transforms you from training vendor or employee to strategic business partner. Number two, 4-pillar approaches work. Leading indicators, learning analytics, performance impact, and business outcome give you bulletproof ROI stories. Number three, speak executive, not training ease. CFOs don't care about completion rates, they care about profit margins. And number four, start measuring now, perfect it later. Don't let perfection hamper your ability to start today. So as a thank you for attending today, I have created a free ROI toolkit for you. You can download it and all the training resources by scanning the QR code or going to the link that I've shared. I've included templates, calculators, frameworks, and checklists that you can start using today. Remember that ROI isn't just about proving your value. It's about ensuring your clients or your boss can't imagine their life without you. So thank you so much. I've included my contact information on the screen. Feel free to email me with questions and please connect with me on LinkedIn. I share a lot of content and information, and that's where I have a lot of my social connections and discussions. So now let's move into Q&A.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Kim. This also hits home because I work for our L&D department over here. So that was a great, insightful session. All right, we have time for some questions, and there's actually a few. So I've saved them for you, Kim. So let me start with the first one. So the first one was from Eric, and they said, how do you come up with a dollar value for lost sale opportunity? Does that make sense?
Well, it's going to depend on the company. It's going to depend on the industry. What's your competition doing? What kind of money are they making? I would start there, and look at the market and what you're doing versus what they're doing.
Yeah, I agree. All right, moving on to another question from Jennifer, and she is saying, Kim, what are some best practices for identifying skill gaps?
So there's, different assessments that can be done. We actually have an assessment tool that sits on top of LearnWorlds and actually asks questions to different types of departments and then recommends courses based on how somebody's answered. So it depends on what tools that somebody has available in their workplace. It may be something as simple as just talking to somebody and seeing, what they're actually doing. It could be something more formal where they're given a questionnaire or a test. So it depends on the job too. If it's something out in a field where it's manual labor, where quality checks are concerned, it may be a manager looking at something and realizing this isn't up to spec, or it could be something where, a whole department or a group of people are quizzed and you're looking at the results. So kind of depends on, what the company is, how big the group is. It's much easier to do a one-on-one with a dozen people versus if you have 1,000 people in the department that you have to assess. But there's going to be tools and different things out there, again, based on size that you could use.
So basically, I guess the best way would be to establish a form of communication to get the feedback, and then you can fill in those gaps a lot easier.
Absolutely, because if communication is not happening between all levels of employees, team members of a company, then that's a problem in and of itself.
Yeah, Yeah, absolutely. All right, I think we got time for a last question over here, and that is from Greg. And Greg is saying, can Kim address how close we can get to casual relationship building, learning, and performance data? With so many factors that can influence behaviors, can we really claim a casual relationship between training and performance?
I think you can. We have. I mean, I think that Peter Gallagher from Denny's is a perfect example of that. Again, it's communication with the client. I would never have known that if I didn't have a communication with Peter for him to come back and say, this is what's actually happened. And particularly for those course authors who are selling their courses, particularly in a corporate environment, it's really important that you not just sell the course and then disappear, that you actually continue to have communication with that client. And, are they giving out surveys? Are they getting feedback from the people who have taken the course? Is management giving them feedback? This is what we're seeing. You need that information to be able to know if your course is hitting home and hitting all the bases and actually, giving the results that you and that client want. But it's listening, it's communicating, and it's having that conversation even after the training takes place. But that's also a great place to have a communication about what are we going to do next. Denny's, for example, we did that customer service project for them, and it was so successful. They came back and we did one on operations for the kitchen next. So it was a great way for us to sell even more training, and they were happy and we were happy. So communicate, keep that line of communication open all during the process.
Yeah, so support leads to more help, it leads to more feedback, and then to even more training, essentially.
Absolutely.
All right, I think that's it for our time on this session, Kim. So thank you a lot for sharing all of this knowledge with us. It was a very insightful session. Thank you for having. We're happy to have you here.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. I think this is the time to take another break. It's going to be short, like around 4 minutes, and then we will jump on to our next session. So let's head over to a 4-minute break, and then we'll be back very, very shortly. All right, we are almost ready to get back from the break. So this is your cue, if you're hearing me, to start coming back. I'm also sharing a last poll question in your screens. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to our next session and the final for day one for today. Remember, WAL has 2 days, so there's more sessions coming tomorrow for you guys. So on to the next session, we are going to see how we can build community-led academies to boost the product adoption. This session is going to be led by our very own Brett Hamilton. He's a customer success lead over here at LearnWorlds, and from Alexander Aydun. We saw him a little bit in the beginning. So Alexander is the Director of Education Documentation over at Dremio. So hello to both of you, and Brett, if you can hear me, if you're here with us.
Thank you, Elisa. I appreciate it. So hi, everyone. I've had the pleasure with working with our next speaker here for the past few years as his CSM. And when I was asked to introduce him at the event today, I kind of jumped on the opportunity, not only because I wanted to get my picture and my name on his slide deck, but he is a great guy and really smart to work and fun to work with. So our next speaker has been leading education and documentation teams since 2015, and he's made it his mission to transform how people learn about complex technical concepts. He's driven open source education at companies such as Qball and Aricto, and most recently Dremio, where he operates as the Director of Education and Documentation, as well as the AI Product Manager. It's my pleasure to once again introduce you to Alexander Aydun, who will be leading us in today's discussion on how to build community-driven learning programs. Alex, thanks again for being here today. We really appreciate it. I know you're battling COVID, but you're staying strong. You're here with us today, and it's greatly appreciated. So I'm actually just going to kind of step back, let you do your thing and all the heavy lifting, and then I'm going to fire some questions at you at the end if you're okay with that.
Sounds like a plan. As I said, I'm hoping for my Michael Jordan flu moment. Can y'all see my screen here?
Yeah. Yep.
Someone already called out in the chat, our mascot is the Gnarly. Yes, I have it right here on my desk. Little Gnarly the Narwhal. So yeah, I'm really thrilled, folks, to be here to talk to you all today about building a community-led academy. Let me say, I want to just kind of highlight my agenda here real quick. We'll talk about why community-first education. We'll talk about identifying audiences and the importance of audience overlap. We'll talk about partnering with evangelists, leading with credentials, taking advantage of the LearnWorld features, maintaining velocity, and engaging, recognizing, and rewarding those in your community. I am really excited about this presentation. So let's just start by talking about why community first, why the pillars and how we went about adopting them. So first and foremost, the open source landscape has fundamentally changed how developers discover and adopt technologies, right? People aren't waiting for vendor training. They're exploring, they're experimenting, and educating themselves. This natural curiosity is actually a huge opportunity for us if you're able to meet them where they are. When developers are educated about technology, not just your product, but the underlying open technology, they become successful users, and success breeds advocacy. They might implement the technology in their organization, in their own projects. They might talk about it at meetups. They might write blog posts. All of this organic growth is powerful for the technology that you're evangelizing. These self-educated individuals are working at companies that probably need enterprise solutions. And when they've already learned from you and they trust you as an educator, you are the natural choice to become a trusted advisor, right? You've earned that right. And this is a really important point to keep in mind, right? You're earning that opportunity in the future to serve as the trusted advisor at the enterprise level. So we talk about pillars of community-led education. First and foremost is free and comprehensive. It might seem counterintuitive. Why give it away? Well, paywalls create friction, right? For Dremio, for a long time, we've evangelized what's known as Apache Iceberg. And for us, a paywall is a barrier to entry. It slows adoption, right? Free education removes friction. We also want it to be practical and hands-on, right? We don't want to just teach theory. We want to solve real-world problems. And this is why we're going to use evangelists to talk about them in a little bit. right? Every course addresses use cases that developers and enterprises face, right? This is a important, right? Practical approach is going to make sure that the knowledge and the concepts are retained in a way that's easily relatable, digestible, and can be referenced, cognitively in the future. A unified audience strategy is also really critical. Everyone benefits when everyone is speaking the same language, whether it be the community, prospecting, sales, support, whomever it may be. For us at Dremio, right, we look at how do we have foundational knowledge that then allows us to drive people to other areas. And a credentialing strategy. These aren't just vanities, metrics, or labels, right? They create a commitment during learning. They become a tool for advocacy in the future. People are investing time and effort. You want to give them something in return, right? So for us, like I said, why we are adopting, well, Apache Iceberg is an open standard that Dremio has evangelized, right? The more people that are talking about it, the better for our ecosystem. It's not a zero-sum game. It's about growing the pie, right? As the community grows, so does the market presence. More companies adopt, more tools support it, more developers learn it. This creates more demand for enterprise solutions, right? So by being a trusted advisor, we position ourselves in the future, right? We earn the ability, as being a trusted educator, we earn the ability in the future to be a trusted advisor. So this is our approach to actually executing on this strategy, and this is our agenda, and we'll talk to this a little bit more. But as I said in the beginning, first thing for us was looking for the audience overlap. The same personas that exist in our community are also at our prospects, our customers, and our partners, right? We partner with evangelists. There are existing champions who are adept at converting highly technical information into digestible discussions, right? We lead with credentials, right? Making sure that people who are investing in learning are being rewarded. And we also take advantage of all the really cool features in Learn Worlds, the flexibility to be creative, to solve problems as they arise with a tool that is evolving and growing with us. So I want to talk a little bit about the importance of audiences and overlap. Let's first talk about, why to consider the audiences. Like I said, everyone benefits, right, when you're all speaking the same language. And this benefits the community. If you've ever been in a community meeting or community forums or commenting on PRs, when people are not speaking the same language, it hurts the community, right? So this is an effort to make sure the community is aligned, right? The skills are often shared across the audiences, which means that the community benefits because you can have core competencies, and core competencies accelerate adoption. Right? And even if everybody's not beginning in the same place, they're going to probably end up on the same journey. So while there's different entry points into that education, it's still going to be the same education that's pretty universal for the community, as well as your prospects and customers in the beginning. And so, the skills overlap is really something that you want to look at, and the audience overlap is something you want to look at. This is going to start to reveal to you as you map these things out where your opportunities are. So, for us, we're looking at what skills were needed, right? Everything from design to development to querying, troubleshooting, tuning, maintenance, right? Kind of the whole gambit. Who needs these skills? Well, the overlap is pretty clear once we start mapping it, right? These skills are needed by engineers and analysts, consultants, architects, designers. There's a lot of overlap in who needs these skills because we have foundational technology coming out that needs to be understood and then adopted. We look at who are these people: the data engineers, the data analysts, the system admins, the platform engineers, the directors of technology. And we also looked at what other technologies are they interested in. When we think about how to educate these individuals, right, the data analyst is probably looking at this with regards to SQL. The data engineer might be looking at it with regards to what's called dbt, right? The technology director might be looking at the ecosystem. What other technologies are comparable or I need to make decisions about or against, right? So all of this tells us that there is overlap in our community. People need the same foundational skills. It tells us what technologies we need to think about as we're starting to partner with our evangelists so that we are getting really good collateral created that touches not just on the one tech, but on all the tech, right? And it's also going to allow us to understand who our target audiences are for our credentials down the road. Evangelists are going to be so critical for building out an OSS strategy. The smart people around you are your best partners. All right. Evangelists teach from experience. They've implemented these technologies at scale. They've hit the edge cases. They found the workarounds. When they say, here's what works, people believe them because they've done it. You can't buy credibility. You have to earn it. So the evangelists are great people to start partnering with. They don't sound like they're reading marketing copy because they're not. They're sharing real stories and real challenges, real solutions, right? Not only can they say this is hard, they can say this is how you solve that problem. They're also forced to continually learn. Evangelists have to keep learning in order to stay abreast of the technology and be an important asset to the community. This means that they're going to be aware of what's cutting edge, what's coming out, and that means your content can stay fresh, right? And their multi-channel presence multiplies the impact. They already have followings. They already have YouTube channels. They already have Medium blogs. And they can evangelize your programming as much as the technology, and they can evangelize those things in parallel, which is a huge benefit for anyone who's trying to work with OSS education. Where are your evangelists? They're in your community. It's those people that are out there, that are speaking, that are doing, that are actually creating traction for this technology to become adopted. They might even be your own passionate employees, and I'll talk about that in a second. There are a lot of different models for partnering with evangelists. You might have a full-time evangelist role. I'm lucky that I have one here in Dremio. You can do guest instructor programs. You can do revenue sharing agreements, co-marketing opportunities, and that can also be cross-enterprise. Maybe two enterprises work together on a program because they're two different parts of the same coin, and it's hosted in both places, right? And of course, community recognition, and we'll talk about the importance of that towards the end. Now, I do want to call out, some of you already are aware of Dremio. You may be aware of Alex Merced. I call him foreground Alex. I'm background Alex. We're very lucky to have him. I'm very lucky. He's co-authored literally the book on the technology that we're evangelizing. He's done many talks. He's been a contributor for the code. He has podcasting and many followers. So I do want to take a moment to thank him publicly. He's been a tremendous partner in my effort. But I also want to call out that you might have this person in your org, you just don't know it yet. But this is a very credible individual. When he talks, people listen. This is the next step. You find your audiences, you find the overlap, you work with your evangelist to understand, okay, how am I going to explain these technologies to those individuals? And then you start thinking about your credentials. And I do want to make sure that everyone is on the same page. Everyone loves a badge, right? I don't think anyone's going to disagree with that point. I could probably make that case all day. Well, the badges are really important because they're not just about making sure that people have something nice to show on LinkedIn. They actually give structure. It's a prescriptive and not a responsive approach. You want to become competent in this technology. Here's your checkpoints, right? This is your badge growth. This is going to show you how to grow in the tech. Here are the programs that support those badges. And we're going to reward you for the time invested in the community because we know by coming here and taking these courses, you're trying to grow the community, not necessarily our business. There's also other benefits that are long tail for this kind of stuff, right? So partners can start to conceptualize services, right? Using your badges to understand tiering of competency, right? Your employees, your sales, your SAs, right? So you start seeing benefits internally from this structure, right? That's overlapping audiences, right? Looking at your audiences holistically and saying, can I do something that's going to meet the needs of everybody, right? The badges speak for themselves, right? We've issued over 5,000 certificates in LearnWorlds. That's a course completion. We've issued over 1,500 badges in response to that. I'll talk about the difference in a minute between the kind of course completion and badges. We have an 84% acceptance rate. Credly's industry standard is 67. We have a 63% share rate. Credly puts that average at 47. Open source technologies, people want to champion and they want to talk about their own success. So these badges are really important for that awareness as well, right? So let's talk about our strategy a little bit. We have 4 primary credentials that we lead with. We do have other credentials that are much more specific to our product. We're still going to acknowledge that we're doing customer-focused ed as well. And we have partner badges, but these are the ones that we think about are intended for everybody. Every badge is the result of 2 courses. Why? Because we want them coming back and learning more, right? We're not creating large 8, 16-hour courses, right? We're creating smaller experiences. And we know that for someone to be truly an advocate and truly competent, they have to do 2 of these in parallel, or sorry, in sequence. We have custom landing pages, custom designs. Every badge is going to feel unique. It's going to have a place where you can go and read about it. This is also going to cover the different personas. The Lakehouse Associate is going to cover pretty much all the personas. The data analyst is going to cover the data analyst persona, maybe the engineer, if the engineer is doing a lot of analyst style work. The data product developer is going to cover the data engineer and the designer, right? The AI architect, well, we know that's sort of more forward facing, but again, we're seeing these personas appear in our communities, people that are preparing these lake houses for supporting agentic workloads. And so we need to think about those people as well, right? And making sure that they are speaking the same language as everybody else in the community so that the community gets lifted up by the onset of this AI technology. So you might have been wondering, Alex, how come it takes 2 courses and how are you doing that? Well, this is one of those areas that Brett's talked about. I've had a lot of good conversations with him, and I love what LearnWorlds is producing. And we enhance that a little bit on our own. So the way this works, whenever someone completes a course in LearnWorlds, they get a tag. It says completed, whatever the course name is, right? If you recall, I said badges are the result of 2 or more courses. Well, in LearnWorlds, when 2 courses get added or 2 tags get added, and those tags reflect a learning path for a badge, well, we add a 3rd tag that says verified, whatever the badge name is. That's the tag that Zapier is looking for. So if a user completes our Data Lakehouse basics and our Apache Iceberg basics, they have the 2 tags that are added. The 3rd tag is added. That's the verified one. That's what Zapier picks up. It tells Credly, hey, this person is now a Lakehouse Associate, and Credly issues this badge. This is super important. There is no manual intervention. These badges are firing while I'm asleep, which is tremendous because we are trying to be global. It does not work if someone has to wait a month for their badge. I think we've all been through that experience where we ordered something online and it was delayed and delayed and delayed, and your excitement level goes down, right? Same thing here. You want that badge delivered to their inbox within minutes of them finishing their last course. Now, I do want to make a quick note about certifications. You've seen me using the phrase badge and credential and verified. OSS certifications require partnership with the umbrella authorities to make sure you work with your legal teams if you're going to take that route. Building a verified by badge is a safe way to begin, gauge interest, as well as if the rigor is worth the investment. So if you are working with another open source technology and you intend to build a certification for that open source technology versus something that is verified by you, the enterprise, make sure you are working with legal, make sure you are contacting the umbrella authority. So you've already heard me talk a little bit about the LearnWorlds features. I truly believe, and I say this with all the love in my heart for the company, that we don't know the power that we've been given, and they don't know what they developed, the power of the tool. It's really interesting when you get to talk to LearnWorlds and you show them what you've done with the tool, and they say, "Oh, that's cool." So you know, I'm tremendously lucky, I feel, to be able to use this tool and be able to solve problems that I didn't know I was going to have when I bought it, right? So let's talk a little bit about some of those pieces of the puzzle. It's easy to build. This means that I can bring other individuals into my system. So evangelists can actually go in and develop. I can have other people go in and develop as well. People can develop their own landing pages and they can wrap the programming. I can do that for specific communities even. We build custom landing pages for our badges, for our programs, right? The course insights, if you heard the talk this morning and some of the panel this morning, the course insights are so critical because we want to be responsive. I mean, we want to be prescriptive and not responsive. And looking at the course insights allows us to get ahead of the trends and understand what's happening so that we are truly being prescriptive. And the automations, I think this is one area that we're still learning about. There's a lot you can do when you start integrating this with Zapier. The tagging is quite powerful. We actually have tags across multiple dimensions, domain and course and badge, and title, right? So all these different tags that you're collecting, they're really important for the automations that you want to drive. Maybe you do want to drive certain people based on their title to certain courses. Maybe you want to auto-enroll them, right? Maybe you want to change your landing page based on what people have done. Our landing page is dynamic based on what badges people have in our system, right? It changes what was being recommended to them based on what we know they've already done, which I think is really important, right? That prescriptiveness. Maintaining velocity is also really critical, right? You need to keep putting content out there. Keep people coming back for more, right? These OSS technologies, if they are hot and they are popular, they are changing weekly, right? You need to make sure you are abreast of that. Which is, again, why working with the evangelist is so important, because they're going to be the ones, instead of you, who have those news feeds, who are drinking in that fire hose, right? They're going to be the ones that are going to help you be aware of what type of velocity you have to maintain, what you have to build, who the new audiences are you have to accommodate. And I also want to comment on engaging, recognizing, and rewarding, right? Your community can help you. We talked about using evangelists. They're not the only individuals. We have a Wavemaker program whereby we can reward people who we make courses available to early. They're not employees. They're people in our community. They come and they give me feedback, right? And I appreciate the time they're investing to make us better for them and their peers and in their community, right? Badges are one way to do this, but think about very creative ways to make sure that you are recognizing and rewarding the people that are helping you build. We cannot do this alone. I have yet to meet an educator who does everything on their own. There is not enough time. You have to work with a team. And that team may not be employees fully. So make sure you are taking the time to thank them, and they're going to want to keep working with you. So that's my little spiel about OSS. I want to make sure we leave some time for questions. I saw a ton of chats. I don't know if that's people saying goodbye or if they're questions for me.
Actually, the number one question, Alex, is where can they get a narwhal hat?
Yeah. Get a narwhal hat? That's
Lots
a
of
good question. This guy?
Yeah.
I love my little narwhal hat.
Giveaway.
We have our conference circuit coming up. Look out for Subsurface. I can't say that you'll get a hat, but there's definitely some cool stuff. I would definitely like some more hats, as you can tell. I'm a hat guy. Goes on my wall. This is my little project. Finding cool hats. So.
Well, we really appreciate you today. I do have a couple questions that we can come in. So I'll kind of fire those at you. But again, really love how you use automations there. That's something I preach, tagging automations. You guys do it perfectly, especially with the badging and certifications. So some of the questions that's come in, it's like, what would you say is the single most effective thing you've done to turn learners into active community members?
Oh, that's a really great question. Call to action, right? Don't let them forget about the community. I know this is going to seem like it's low-hanging fruit, but if your content is engaging and people want to evangelize further, right, engage with the community, you have to let them know where that is. You have to let them know how to get to it. You have to let them know how to engage. That community may have tons of Slack channels, for example. There may be a lot of different GitHub discussion groups, right? Being very targeted about that, telling people how to go and engage is part of the OSS education, right? Just evangelizing the technology is not enough. You have to also evangelize community engagement and involvement. So I know that seems like a kind of simple answer, just like, well, point them to it. But if everything else falls into place, that's the last piece of the puzzle, is telling them where to go.
Okay, thank you. The next question, I'm starting to build our company's learning community. What are the first steps that I should take?
First thing to do to build your company's learning community is to understand who else wants to build the learning community in your company and outside of your company. To me, that's the number one step, because if you know who your partners are going to be, that's going to give you a sense of where your gaps might be. And if you know where your gaps might be, then you can be very early articulate about, we're going to struggle because of X, Y, and Z. So if you know you're going to struggle, that means that you can get ahead of those problems. So knowing who your partners are internally and externally is going to reveal to you sort of, your Avengers team, right, so to speak, of people that are going to go together and make that happen. The second thing you need to do is figure out who you're talking to, right? And you need to figure out what they need to learn. I have seen people build great education that no one adopts because the education wasn't what they wanted. It's still great. It's great, but it's not what people are asking for, right? And that disconnect is, again, why you need to think about the audience overlap, right? The last thing I would do is make sure you understand what you're trying to measure. Another thing I've seen people do is create a lot of education and then say to themselves, well, what's the impact we're having, right? That's also really important, because if you want to show community impact and then also ask your community to become more engaged in supporting that impact, you're going to have to be able to measure it. So that measure could be badged users that are raising PRs. That could be badged users that are coming to community meetings, right? There's multiple ways to think about measuring that. How you measure is going to affect how you strategize, right? And how you develop. But for me, those are probably the three things, right? Figure out who your partners are so you know your gaps, figure out your audience and what they have to learn and how they like to learn, right? And figure out how you're going to measure the impact so you can actually be responsive to what you've done.
Okay. And that's really interesting. Actually, it's a question I get a lot from people who are starting with our platform is, how do I utilize the community? How do I build the community? How do I get stronger with it? So it's good. That's a great answer.
Yeah, I'll just say, if you've already picked Learn Worlds, you don't have to worry about that part anymore. The learning system is solved, right? So you have to worry about the other stuff that supports that learning system.
Thank you. The next question I have is actually going to go down the line of your experience with AI. So we have a question here from James, who asks, how do you keep track of the AI developments that are happening daily? It's an emerging technology. It's crazy. Something new coming out regularly. How do you yourself keep track of that for your product team?
Okay, tacking a little bit less about education, a little bit more about AI. I basically start my day by reading VentureBeat. They have great AI articles. So for me, that's what I would subscribe to. It is some, I don't know their paid advertising or pay to play approach, but I always find those articles really important, and they tell me what to go pull on next. So they might not be the ending point of my education, but they're definitely the starting point. That basically tells me what happened while I was asleep and what I need to think about and worry about. And then from there, I know this is going to sound silly, but I actually use the chat tools to help me understand. I have come up under the era of read to learn. So I still like to read a lot, and that's how I learn about these technologies that I end up writing about. And often when you are looking at, thank you. Often when you're looking at evolving technologies, there is no one who has formal education, or if they do, they know just as much as you. So looking at what's actually happening, following VentureBeat is my favorite starting point. And then from there, follow the web, what else they're pointing to.
I mean, it's going to be tough to stay in front of that all the time.
You absolutely can't. You just gotta, it's like a puzzle. It's like a puzzle, right? They're throwing more pieces at you and no one knows what the box looks like, right?
Constantly evolving.
Yeah, basically.
Lisa, do we have time for more questions, or are we
I guess we could squeeze a last one in.
Oh, let me
Sure.
see what else I got here. My little box of questions here. How interactive with each other are students in various communities, and what can we do to develop student collaborations?
Ooh, that's a good one. So that's a really good question. This is an interesting space, actually. So LearnWorlds has community functionality. Communities often have their own functionality, right? So it's unlikely you're going to replicate what's happening in the actual OSS community inside of your LearnWorlds community. In fact, I would argue not to try to do that too aggressively, right? That's your student community. That's not your OSS community. To get those people to work together, though, and build relationships, some really interesting things I've seen, hackathons, right? I mean, that's low-hanging fruit, I think, in a lot of cases. Having sort of fireside chats is also really important, where you have like something like this, right? Sort of like a forum, but it's a little bit, I would say more ad hoc, where the community gets to come on stage and be a presenter and ask the panelists questions. Got to make sure people are ready for that, though, right? That's a little bit of a high intensity one. Recognizing people publicly, if you do have some sort of conference as well, is really helpful. So not at Dremio, for example, but other places I've worked at where we have very large conferences and we have very large user bases, you might have a happy hour or a coffee and chat that's exclusive to people with a certain type of badge or credential. So a couple of ways to get those communities developed. I would say forcing people to work together is hard, but building relationships is the first step towards doing that. So those are the ways that I would try and get people to build those relationships. Although I would say hackathon is how you force them to work together.
Well, we appreciate that. Thank you very much, Alex. And thank you for your time today and your experience, sharing your experience with us today. So it was a great session. I'm sure everyone enjoyed it. So thank you very much again.
My absolute pleasure.
Yeah, absolute
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Elisa?
Yeah, I was just going to say thank you to both of you. Great last session, and what a great way to kick off the first day of the wall. Again, don't forget, tomorrow is the second day with just as much sessions and a lot more speakers as well. So don't forget that same time tomorrow. And just before we wrap up, I slightly mentioned that into the chat. So if you are using AI in customer training, then in just 5 minutes, you can actually join the very first ever study in AI in customer education. So if that feels interesting, then, take our 5-minute survey and share how you and your team use AI for customer education. And not only that, but you will get, of course, early access to the reports, essentially the answers, and even a chance to win 500 euros. So take our survey. I think my colleagues are sharing the link into the chat. It's just a 5-minute survey. If you cannot use or copy the chat, I feel like some people had issues with that. Don't worry, you can go over to our LinkedIn, just search for LearnWorlds or even me, and you'll be able to find that over there as well. Right, I think we're good to wrap up the first day. So thank you a lot for being here, for joining the sessions, to our speakers, of course. And I guess we'll see you all tomorrow, same time. So bye-bye and good night, good morning, depending on where you are. Bye.